reeling Eagles complete the schedule gauntlet with a Monday nighter in Seattle against a desperate Seahawks team in the midst of a 4-game losing streak. We'll talk to Mike Sando, who covers the Seahawks for The Athletic. Gary Myers joins me to talk officiating, quarterbacks, and Roger Goodell. Sean Green will pipe in with his Week 15 player props and picks. Justin Bruni has your fantasy semifinals ready. And we'll take a hard look at the playoff picture. It's all right now on a must-see edition of This Week in Pro Football.
It's time for This Week in Pro Football. A deep dive into the key issues and marquee matchups in the National Football League. For the next 60 minutes, we invite you to sit back or lean in with host Pat Callahan as we preview the week's Eagles matchup, big games, breaking stories, and all news NFL. It's This Week in Pro Football, right now on JAKIB Media Sports.
All right. Hello, everybody. Pat Callahan joining you for week number 15 of This Week in Pro Football here in the middle of December as the days are reaching their shortest, their shortest in terms of the year, and the nights are the longest. We get to the winter equinox. Thank you very much for joining me here on JAKIB Sports. Please give me a follow. My Twitter feed, X feed, if you will, at TWIPF Pat. You can follow the network at JAKIB Sports. Tone DeShields II is my producer today as we rumble into the weekend. Don't forget, there are 3 games Saturday this week. You have Pittsburgh is at Indianapolis, Cincinnati is at Minnesota, and then a Saturday night game, Denver is at Detroit. So make sure you get yourself ready fantasy-wise if you've got anybody going. If you have anybody going in the Thursday night game, you're already hopeless. Just incredible. You talk about quarterbacks this year. How about Easton Stick against Aiden O'Connell tonight on Thursday Night Football? And they wonder why Al Michaels is mailing it in. All right, listen, we got a million things to talk about. Sal Pao is unavailable to me today, so I won't be able to talk with him about it. But I've got I'm going to use the agenda I have with Sal because we got a lot to go through. Gary Myers is going to fill in for Sal in just a few minutes. I'm going to talk to Gary primarily about officiating quarterbacks and a comment he made about the NFL scheduling and Roger Goodell. And then later in the show, we'll have Mike Sando with us from The Athletic. Michael has a long time with ESPN covering the Seahawks and is now, as I said, with The Athletic. And he puts out a quarterback tier column semi-annually, and it's interesting to talk about that. For those of you who subscribe to The Athletic, if you don't, I would urge you to do so. All right, listen, Tone, if you will, let's take a look here at the playoff picture. This is the playoff picture in both the AFC and the NFC. AFC on the left there, NFC is on the right. You can see that the Ravens held serve against the Rams barely. Rams put up a good fight, but Baltimore clearly now is in the driver's seat for the 1 seed. Miami inexplicably loses a Monday nighter at home to Tennessee, despite having a 27-13 lead in the fourth quarter. The Kansas City Chiefs stumble again. The Chefs stumble against Buffalo. I thought they would have trouble in that game, but I certainly thought they'd win it. Again, wide receiver problems plague the Chiefs. Doesn't it seem every single week? This time, Kadarius Toney lines up. He's offside by 2 feet. He's offside. It's not the official's job to move him back. All this bleeding like sheep out of Kansas City that, well, the guy didn't warn me. What's he going to warn you for? Do they warn defensive ends when the defensive ends line up offside? No. How about getting onside? But it's a shame. It was a terrific play, really, by Travis Kelce, and he deserved a ton of accolades for doing it. And he threw it, of course, ironically, to Toney, the lateral, who scored what would have been the lead touchdown. You never know when those two teams get together. But anyway, the Chefs stumble. How about the job that Kevin Stefanski's doing in Cleveland? The Browns now sitting at the 5 seed, despite losing their starting quarterback 3 weeks ago. And they, in the playoffs, would face a 4 seed Jacksonville. I've told you all season, I'm not impressed with the Jaguars. Cleveland just beat Jacksonville. I'm just not impressed with them. I just don't think the Jaguars are a top-tier AFC team. In the NFC, You see San Francisco now is in the driver's seat. The 49ers have caught the Eagles and hold the tiebreaker against them. Niners at 10-3 along with Philadelphia. Dallas has now moved into the 2 seed against Philadelphia. So the Eagles now are looking at a 5 seed. So that's a pretty precipitous drop that happened on Sunday night when the Eagles lost again in Dallas. I thought they'd win the game. They did not. They didn't come close to winning that game. Did not score an offensive touchdown. Some very disturbing statistics about the Eagles. We'll get to that in a minute. But Philadelphia, they're on their heels right now, but they can still do it. They play a Monday nighter in Seattle. It is a huge game. We'll talk about that too when we look at the schedules. Detroit, a 3 seed. I don't care about Detroit. Okay, Detroit is the Jacksonville of the NFC. Detroit goes into Chicago and plays terribly. And it's just a fact of life with Jared Goff. He's a California boy, and he's going to play very good football when there's a roof over his head. He's going to play lousy football when there's not a roof over his head. That's the way of it. So I don't think Detroit's going to go very far at all. So that's the seeding right there in the NFC and the AFC. Let's take a look, Tone, if you might, at the remaining schedules of the 4 NFC teams. We started tracking this last week. You can see the Eagles at Seattle, and then they got three games they better win. Now, the Giants are a sneaky 5-8. The Giants have won 3 straight. And please, they didn't win them in dramatic. I shouldn't say they didn't win in dramatic fashion. They did. They didn't win them in convincing fashion. But the Giants are now rallying behind Tommy DeVito, and we'll see. We'll see if what fight the Eagles have to play them twice. But really, the key game for the Eagles is the Monday nighter. The Lions, like I said, I don't know. I think they're going to have a lot of trouble with Denver. They're going to have a lot of trouble at Minnesota, and they're going to lose in Dallas. Other than that, they're in pretty good shape. San Francisco, the only stumble that San Francisco is going to do, obviously, is the Christmas night game at home. And that's a key thing. They get the Ravens at home. Baltimore's got to travel 3,000 miles on Christmas Day. They're going to be thrilled with that. But that's the only chance San Francisco has. If San Francisco wins out, they're the 1 seed. So that would be a game where all Eagle fans will be rooting like hell for the Ravens. Dallas, not easy. Dallas has 3 of their last 4 on the road where they are not the same team. I don't think it's as dramatic as Detroit, but the Cowboys much better on home cooking than they are on the road. They're at Buffalo. That's going to be a tough game. I do not see Dallas winning that game. At Miami, that's winnable. Dolphins very mercurial. And then they'll beat the Lions and they'll beat the Commanders. So nothing final yet at all. I still see the Eagles winning the division because I think they have a much easier finish. I think, but Dallas at best goes 2-2. The Eagles should go 3-1. Okay, Tony, thank you very much for that. Listen, so just a quick take. First off, on last week, Dallas ran 71 plays to the Eagles 51. Dallas had 32 running plays to the Eagles 23. The Eagles could not get Dallas off the field on 3rd down. And it's been a problem now plaguing the Eagle defense. They just can't get them off the field. So the Eagles have now trailed at half the last 6 weeks. And that is not a recipe for winning football. You can't keep trailing when you go into halftime. They've given up 30-plus points the last 3 weeks. That's alarming, certainly. And they're now -4 turnover differential after another 3 fumbles last week. So the arrow is pointing straight down for Philadelphia. But you know what? It's a long season. They can turn it around. They still can. And as I said, it's going to hinge on Monday night in Seattle. Now, Tim McManus, my good friend and the guy who covers the Eagles for ESPN, Tim wrote a good column. You should check it out on ESPN.com on the 5 things the Eagles have to do to get the ship right. Now, he mentions 3rd down defense, like I was just saying. The Eagles are last in the NFL, allowing 48% conversion on 3rd downs. That means that you know that's that. 5 out of 10 times, half the time, the other team is converting on 3rd down, and that is debilitating. It's going to be very hard to win games when your offense doesn't have the ball. The Eagles are tied for last in the league in 3rd down sacks. Now, that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable for a team with that front 4 and that rotation to be last in the league in 3rd down sacks. One thing it tells you is that it's not too much that the other team is 3rd and 9, 3rd and 11. Usually they're 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, which your defense can't tee off. Eagles' red zone defense, opponents are scoring touchdowns at a 70% clip. That ain't good. And turnovers, I told you. Not only the Eagles now on -4, Jalen Hurts is tied for third most among quarterbacks. Developed a little bit of a fumbling problem. The offensive game plan, the Eagles are averaging 6.3 first half points per game in the last 3 games. 6.3, okay? And you wonder why they're trailing at halftime. They've got to get this offensive game plan. They got to inject some serious imagination into this game plan and get things figured out offensively. Right now, teams have got them figured out, especially in the first half. And then the rushing yardage, the only thing I'll point out to you on that, Sal Paolantonio has been talking about it all season long. The Eagles, Jalen Hurts as an example. This time last year, he had 686 rushing yards. This year, 460. Now, we all knew he was going to carry the ball less. And, of course, he has a bulky knee. That's going to exacerbate it. Problem is, no one has filled in those 226 yards. It's not like DeAndre Swift is running 300 yards ahead of where the Eagles were last year among running backs. The Eagles are not running the ball as successfully as they were last year. Now, they're 10-3. The problem is that the last 2 weeks have really exposed them, and they've got to get it straightened out. You do not want to be a 5 seed and have to go to San Francisco in the second week of the playoffs after playing a wild card game. So a daunting task for Philadelphia as they go into Monday night against and I tell you, I'm scared. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd rather play a team on a 4-game winning streak than play a team on a 4-game losing streak. Only 4 teams this year have lost more than 4 games in a row. It doesn't happen very often, and those 4 teams, you can guess them. New England, Arizona, Carolina, the Jets. You don't want to be in that company. But the point is that good teams like Seattle don't lose 5 in a row. This is not going to be easy for Philadelphia Monday night. They've got to fix the items that Tim McMahon has pointed out. All right, listen, we get back. Gary Myers is going to join me. We're going to go around the league. We'll touch on Eagles, Seahawks, of course. Don't forget Mike Sando will join me at the top of the next hour. We'll go through this game in great detail. Mike from The Athletic. But I want to talk to Gary about quarterbacks, about officiating, about that play, Buffalo, Kansas City, and about a post that Gary made on X about Roger Goodell and the NFL's insistence on playing international football. We're going to do all that next on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
Celebrate your victories in style at Spring Mill Country Club. From Eagles wins to baby showers, weddings to birthdays, our picturesque venue is ready to host your special events. Make memories that last a lifetime in our stunning surroundings. Call Spring Mill today at 215-675-6000 and elevate your next event to unforgettable heights. Contact us now to book 215-675-6000.
John Kennedy Ford. Their reputation sounded too good to be true, so my partner and I decided to do a little digging.
They know we can see them, right?
We could get them a great deal if they just come inside.
They made us. Run! Uncovering a better car buying experience is easy at John Kennedy Ford. Enjoy your ride.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Welcome back to This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford. Pat Callahan joining you here as we rumble into Week 15 in the National Football League. All right, Tony, let's bring this gentleman on, the author of the bestseller Once a Giant, and longtime guest and expert analyst on HBO's Inside the NFL, and, of course, from the Dallas Morning News and the New York Daily News, Gary Myers. Gary, how are you?
Pat, how you doing tonight?
All right. Thank you very much for stepping in here. You're in the Sal Pal segment, so I know you're going to bring your A game here, Gary, right?
Well, Pat, this is a great warm-up to get me ready for Aiden O'Connell versus Easton Stick tonight.
That's correct. I want you taking copious notes, Gary, because we're going to spend the whole hour next week breaking down that Chargers-Raiders game because and they wonder why Al Michaels is checked out. I mean, you want to pay me $1 million a week to broadcast Easton Stick versus Aiden O'Connell. All right, fine. But don't expect me to treat it, like it's the ice ball.
I mean, beginning of the season, this looked like it could potentially be, an interesting game.
Right.
Until, the Chargers, prove once again they can't win games going down the stretch with that coach that they have. And,
right.
And the quarterback gets hurt and the Raiders are a mess and as usual. And Al gets stuck with another game that you're probably looking on Netflix to see what else is on, switching off Amazon.
I know. Well, let's stay with this, which is quarterbacks for now, Gary.
Yeah.
ESPN stats and information says that, and QBR, quarterback rating, is a recent stat. Okay, it was only promulgated since 2006, but still, this year projects to be the lowest aggregate QBR of any year since they started the stats 17 years ago. So, just give me a quick take from you. How pervasive is the quarterback problem the NFL seemingly has, and what are they going to do to fix it?
Well, there seems to always be trends in the league. And the trend right now is that there's no backup quarterbacks.
Right.
And, Pat, I've always contended that on a good team that has Super Bowl aspirations, one of the 5 most important players on the team is the backup quarterback. There's always going to be a drop-off, but if you can prevent the drop-off from being incredibly severe, then you have a chance to keep your season going.
Right.
But, tell me one team that doesn't really get hurt if their starting quarterback goes down. And, I mean, the Jets season was over after 4 plays.
Yeah.
4 plays.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. They've done everything they can to try to make the game safer. For quarterbacks, you can't tackle them anymore. You might as well put red jerseys on them with flags on their hips. Defensive players are afraid to tackle these guys, in fear of a 15-yard penalty.
Yeah.
I don't know what else they can do to prevent them from getting hurt.
No, I don't think prevention's the issue, Gary. I think the issue is that, isn't it by default clear that the NCAA, which is the minor league of the National Football League, is not producing quarterbacks that are ready to play in the NFL? I mean, C.J. Stroud might be an example. The roadside is littered with examples of quarterbacks who are heralded in college, but then they get into the pro game and they can't make it.
Well, everybody's playing the spread offense in college. Right. One of the knocks on C.J. Stroud was that he wasn't good running the ball, because every quarterback that comes into the league now, it seems you got to be able to be no worse than the second best running back on your team.
Right. And
CJ, Stroud is agile enough, and when he has to, he can run, but he's more of a pocket quarterback, which is what the NFL has always been built on. But now, the inventory that's coming into the league, except for a handful, are all been trained in this, the old run and shoot offense. And that doesn't translate well over the long haul for the NFL. I want to see, listen, I love watching Lamar Jackson play. But, tell me when he wins the Super Bowl.
I agree with you. I've said that, Gary, all season about Lamar Jackson. I'll believe it when I see him up on that podium, man. Yeah. Or just give me a deep run. How about winning a playoff game, Lamar? And then I'll believe it. But a lot of pressure on the Ravens in that regard this year.
Yeah, Pat, what's interesting is that when Tom Brady said about a month ago that the offensive players have to do a better job protecting themselves, that, the league is penalizing the defense too much. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but I think that was the gist of what he said. The interesting thing to me about that is that did anybody complain to the officials more than Tom Brady?
No.
I mean, a defensive player would touch him and he's crying for a personal foul.
I know. That's true. That is true. But the NFL, I mean, I'm sure it's Park Avenue is taking a hard look at it. But they better come up with something in terms of quarterbacks. Now, let's switch to officiating, Gary. Big dust up again last week, and it seems to always be in Arrowhead Stadium. 2 weeks ago, it was the missed pass interference call.
Right.
And now last week, it's Kadarius Toney, who you lauded as a first-round draft pick of the New York Giants.
I lauded him?
I distinctly remember something like that. But anyway.
Maybe I questioned.
Yeah, Toney lines up almost a yard offside. And the Chiefs are complaining that he should have been warned. I don't understand where that is in the rule book, but just officiating in general. We just mentioned how the NFL has a serious quarterback problem and keeping them healthy and generating good backups. How serious a problem do you see officiating as? Or do you agree with me when I said to Sal last week, we're just asking too much of them? There's too many penalties, especially, Gary, pre-snap penalties. Give me your take.
Yeah, just on the Toney situation, I guess it's become standard procedure that if a receiver in the slot looks over to, what is it, the line judge or the side judge?
Yeah, the side judge, yeah.
Yeah, that he's supposed to wave him back if he's
right.
over the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of the player's responsibility to line up onside.
Yeah.
And for Mahomes and Reed kind of making fools of themselves after the game.
I thought so too.
Yeah, and I think they backed off that a little bit.
Mahomes certainly did, yeah.
Yeah, but I agree. I think that the game has become much too complicated to officiate. There's addendums to every rule, and each rule has 5 sub-paragraphs, and it's happening in real time.
I agree.
And then you have instant replay that's correcting the stuff that's correctable.
Now, look, I agree with you, and I've said this to Sal. He didn't really agree with me, Gary. But just look at the offside call now. For 90 years in the NFL, if a defensive lineman jumped, he had the chance to get back before the snap of the ball, and we play on. Nope, not now. He flinches. I don't mean jumps. I mean the defensive lineman flinches. Up comes the offensive tackle, and he's pointing at the defensive end. And out go the flags, and we all sit there and wait for them to sort it out. I think that they've got to simplify this. Get rid of the 5-yard illegal chuck call. Knock it off with this neutral zone infraction nonsense. And they got to get this game where stop trying to define what a pass is and just go with your eyes, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And I think the league would be a lot better off.
Pat, have you noticed this year left tackles seem to be getting a head start on dropping back? No
question, Gary, especially in Kansas City. That guy is a full beat ahead of the snap almost every play. You're exactly
and it's never called. I don't get it. And I think, I read so much stuff, and I kind of recall reading the other day that they let the left tackle not get a full step, but start his drop back before the snap. Again, I can't vouch that where that came from, but I thought I read something about that, which I've never heard before. It just seems, it's illegal motion or whatever you want to call it, a false start.
Right.
Almost every play on passing plays.
Right.
The game right now, to me, it's a mess. I know Goodell and Troy Vincent were defending the officiating at the league meeting in Dallas yesterday, and to a certain degree, you can agree with them because certain degree you can agree with them because the game is just there's 5,000 things happening on every play, and they're going to miss some. The stuff that's difficult to accept for me is what's happened with the quarterback. That it's just changed the game where they got to count the steps before they hit the quarterback.
I think
the ball's out of his hand.
Yep. Yeah, and you're right. And you can't hit him below the knee. You can't hit him above the number. It's gotten, and that's why the emphasis on officials right now. I don't think they're any worse than they ever were.
No, I agree with that. It's just
wait.
The technology on television has gotten so amazing that sitting at home we can see when mistakes are made, and then the replay people are going to see it, and it makes the officials look bad. And
all right, that's enough about that. Let me now circle you back a week. This show is really based in Philadelphia. I want a quick take from you. Would you believe we only have a couple minutes left here, Gary? I don't know where the time went, but give me your thoughts on the Sunday nighter. where the Eagles are, obviously they look terrible. They looked terrible 2 weeks ago. They looked terrible Sunday night.
Yeah.
Give me a quick take as an old NFC East guy on the Eagles, and can they get the ship righted in what I think, Gary, is going to be a tough game in Seattle?
Yeah. I heard you say before you'd rather play a team with a 4-game winning streak than a 4-game losing streak. Not me. I'd rather play a team that's struggling, especially with a quarterback who, Geno Smith coming off a groin injury. I guess he went through the walkthrough this morning and came out of it okay. I haven't heard yet, and he was supposed to practice this afternoon. I haven't heard yet because of the time difference. But, Seattle was one of the more interesting and surprising stories a month ago, and now Pete Carroll, it's his first 4-game losing streak in Seattle, and they're really struggling. I think this is a good spot for Philadelphia to get on a run because after Monday night, what do they have? The Giants, Arizona, and the Giants.
Right.
And unless you're buying into this whole Tommy Cutlets thing here in New York, I'm not sold on the Giants at all.
Yeah.
So,
Gary, nothing speaks to the NFL's dearth of quarterbacks more than a guy who goes 17 of 21 for 158 yards and 1 touchdown, being named the NFC Player of the Week.
Well, how about Zach Wilson? Now, he deserved it. He threw for over 300 yards.
Right.
But what were the chances at the beginning of the season that on week 14, you got Zach Wilson and Tommy DeVito as the AFC and the NFC Players of the Week? But, the Eagles, slow starts. They got to score in the first half. Their defense has been giving up, was it 3 straight games, 30 points, something like that? 3
straight games, 30 points or more, yep.
And I know there's probably a little uneasiness in Philly now, and understandable.
A little.
What's that?
A little. Yeah.
A little, yeah.
I'd say a little more than a little.
Because they just lost to the other 2 best teams in the conference.
That's true. You're right.
They're going to have to beat one or both of them to get back to the Super Bowl, and they get blown out in both games. So, but this stuff happens. I mean, you can't. Now, I know that the season now is winding down, so it's getting shorter, but I always say you can't make long-term judgments based on short-term results. And the Eagles were the best team in the league at 10-1. I don't think I mean, it's understandable for people not be as excited about them, more confident is a better word. But with the remaining schedule coming up, they still have a shot at getting the 1 seed. Baltimore, at San Francisco is going to be a game that the Niners could lose.
It's that same. But I just don't see the Niners losing again, Gary. I don't. But listen, now I got a few seconds. Let me hit you with this last one. You posted on X not long ago that Roger Goodell seems hell-bent on getting every team in the NFL to give up a game to play somewhere in Europe. I mean, is there no end to this as far as you see it, that the NFL sees Europe as their next gold mine, and they've probably mined out almost everything they could here, so they're going to try and triple or double at least their presence in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, they haven't gotten everything out of this country yet because who knows what other streaming service is going to be willing to pay, for Tuesday or Wednesday night games in the future. But yeah, I mean, he said it. He wants to make this a global sport. It's going to go double to 8 international games in 2025. They're going to play in Brazil next year. It's enough. I don't mean to sound this way, but this is our game, right?
I'm with you.
This is our country's game.
Yeah.
You don't see regular season. I don't even know what they call it, the Champions League games or whatever. You don't see them being played in Chicago and New York during. What are they doing here?
I agree, and I tell you, I think the reaction will be quite vitriolic here in Philly if all of a sudden the Eagles season ticket holders are told, you got 7 games next year, not 8. The reaction.
Well, it's coming. The Eagles have never had a home game over there, right?
No.
It's coming up at some point. It's unavoidable.
Yep.
And this is what the future is.
Yeah.
Pat, the breaking point is going to be when they announce the first Super Bowl in London.
That's right. Yeah.
And and the money that whatever city would have gotten it here, it's going to lose.
Right.
It's going to be unforgivable that they're going to be padding the economy of a European country when this country needs all the money to get.
Right. All right, listen, Gary Myers, thanks a lot for filling in here. It was an excellent discussion. We could have gone on for an hour. I do want to talk to you. Coming up will be the Hall of Fame, the cut down from the finalists. And I can't wait to talk to you about that. So we'll do that real soon. And thank you again for joining me tonight.
And the book over my shoulder is a great holiday gift over the shoulder.
Everybody get it. Once a Giant. Everybody, great Christmas gift, not just for your Giant fan, for any fan of the NFC, right. Particularly anybody in the NFC East. I heartily recommend it. Once a Giant by Gary Myers. Gary, thanks very much, pal.
Take care, Pat. Happy holidays to everybody.
All right, same to you. Thank you, Gary. All right, listen, we get back here. Sean Green's going to join me. We are going to talk about Week 15 props, Week 15 picks. I got a few games picked out for Sean. We'll do that next on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
Discover the essence of true community banking with First Bank, your trusted partner across eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Their network of branches brings you convenient access to dedicated personal bankers who understand your unique needs. At First Bank, you're not just a customer, you're a valued member of the community. But that's not all. They are excited to join forces with another pillar of the community banking world in eastern Pennsylvania, Malvern Bank. Their team of professionals will fit seamlessly into First Bank's culture of dedication and understanding your financial aspirations to fuel your success. With a deep-rooted commitment to eastern Pennsylvania, Malvern Bank stands as a testament to community values and unwavering support. Experience the difference of real relationships and dedicated personal bankers. Connect with any member of the team today at our Westchester office, conveniently located at 849 Paoli Pike, or you can call them directly at 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC. At Whistler Pearlstein LLP, we assemble the most effective team to handle all of your legal needs. There are players and pretenders, but our hustle and heart set us apart. In practice now for over 75 years, we're proud to be one of the most prominent full-service law firms in the Philadelphia region. We offer 17 different areas of practice, including business, corporate, and tax education law, real estate, zoning, and land development, municipal law, and litigation. Our top-rated attorneys and staff are laser-focused on client success. We strive to provide outstanding legal counsel with the highest level of care and consideration. Let us show you the Whistler way. Learn more at WhistlerPearlstein.com or email Michael J. O'Donohue at mod@WhisPearl.com. WhistlerPearlstein.com or mod@WhisPearl.com.
I want to be a game changer in construction. I want to be able to provide diversity in the workforce, and it starts at the top. I started Rodriguez Construction Group in 2013 with 2 employees, and we're 85 strong today. M&T has been a great partner since day one, providing us the access, the opportunity, the funding to be able to continue our growth. We can change the community in a positive way, one person at a time, one job at a time, and one family at a time. I think M&T Bank is very committed to the community, just like us.
Welcome back This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan joining you here on JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. Give me a follow at TWIPF Pat. Follow this guy at Sean T. Green, the purveyor of the sports gambling podcast, Sean Green. Sean, how are you, pal?
Doing great. You know, we would be doing a little better if the Eagles stopped getting their butts kicked. But yeah, other than that,
Yes.
Yeah. How about our Rams though? I told you they would be.
You certainly did. And
tough loss though.
Talking about officiating, that was clearly a block in the back. Isn't it something? Usually 105 times out of 100, they will find the officials an illegal block, on a kickoff or a punt return, and on a game on an overtime punt return that ends the game, they miss a blatant block in the back. But okay, so be it. Well, I'll talk to you in a minute about officiating, but Sean, I wanted to get your take first off on Sunday night's game, Eagles and the Cowboys. The Eagles have apparently, Sean, the statistics say there's some systemic problems have crept into the Eagles game. Do you think they can snap out of it? And are you confident in the number and in the Birds for Monday Night Football?
Yeah, I mean, I do think they can. Now, confident is a stretch. I don't think anyone can say, they're confident about this Eagles team right now because of how poorly they've looked these last 2 games. Now, you can make a lot of excuses. There was a rest disparity in both games. Teams coming off the Thursday night game, getting those extra days of rest. This team did seem a little gassed, and, no excuses for it, but that's just eye test. That's how they looked. I think the fact that they moved this game to Monday night, giving the Eagles an extra day of rest, an extra day of prep, I do think kind of helps the Eagles. And they're going off, going up against an inferior opponent with Geno Smith, who I think they can get the best of. He's probably going to play, and he's probably not going to be 100%. So there's ever a game for this defense to get right. I think it's this one. And, some of the mistakes, like fumbling in the opponent's side of the football 3 times, it's not going to happen a ton, and it's a fixable thing. So it's on them to fix that. It's on Sirianni, the head coach, to coach with a better game plan, stress ball security. Like, it kind of go back to some fundamental stuff that you would have thought the Eagles would have gotten down by now. But yeah, at the end of the day, they are a very talented team. They still control their own destiny when it comes to winning the NFC East. And the 49ers, they have a decently tough schedule, or at least they do have that game against the Ravens. So if the 49ers just lose one and the Eagles lose out, they are back in the number 1 seed.
Right, I understand. Yeah, I get that. Now, let me ask you this, Sean. I opined earlier in the show, Gary Myers did not agree with me, that I'd rather play a team on a 4-game winning streak than a team on a 4-game losing streak. Because unless you're Carolina, Arizona, the usual suspects, you're going to revert to the mean. You're not going to lose 5 in a row. You're not going to win 5 in a row. Give me your thoughts on that. The fact that Seattle's lost 4 in a row, I think it makes them dangerous. And how do you account for that when you're looking at spreads?
Yeah, no, definitely. They are a desperate team, who's lost 4 games in a row and are at home, a home dog on Monday night. That's always tough when it comes to the spread. But then I think in a weird way, if I was a Seattle fan, I would have been rooting for the Eagles to win that game against the 49ers or the Cowboys, or even both, because then they would be coming in a little more complacent, maybe smelling themselves a little bit. But now this Eagles team, their backs are against the wall as well. So I think it kind of depends on the situation. The Eagles coming in on their own losing streak, Jalen Hurts had only lost like 3 starts previously, and now he's lost, or, in the last 30-some games.
I know. Now he's lost 2 in a row. You're right.
Yeah, so I think in some ways, if the Eagles would have won both these games, I think you could make a good case for Seattle, and the number would be slightly higher. But now that we're getting that lower number, you're getting a desperate Eagles team, I think it makes it a little tougher. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, one of our favorite trends is the close your eyes special, where if a team underperforms the spread by 20 points and they're getting points the next week, you always want to bet on them because there's an overreaction. And at the end of the day, these guys are professional football players. They do have a pretty good floor. So, saying like, oh, they suck so hard, blah, blah, blah. And then next thing you know, Zach Wilson's player of the week, Tommy DeVito's player of the week in the NFL. So these guys, the bottom and the top isn't really that different in the NFL. That's why it's an exciting game.
That's right. Now, Seattle, what I remember most about Seattle, you and I talked about it last week, was how good they looked in that game against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
The week after Thanksgiving, not just because they had those great uniforms on too.
Yes.
But, I mean, if that Seattle team shows up, Sean, the Eagles are going to have trouble because defensively, the Eagles are, the Eagles are going to struggle with the DK Metcalf. He's clearly having the best season, I think, of his career. And I think the Philly's got to get some of these things corrected defensively. In order for them to get out of here with a win, which, Sean, they've got to do it. They've got to win this game. So you're right.
And you're right. The secondary has been a huge issue. Bradbury and Slay getting up there a little bit. They've had
they lack speed in the secondary. You're right.
Yes. They don't have that top end speed, and they had been able to work around it by getting a really good pass rush, by having decent safety play with Reed Blankenship, who got knocked out of that game. Hopefully he returns on Monday. That's a big swing for this Eagles defense. So yeah, I do think they win and get the cover, but yeah, I mean, the confidence level is not high for this Eagles team right now.
Now, I always ask you one unfair question a week. I tried to prep it this week with my. Is there such a thing as a prop on the number of rushing attempts the Eagles would make Monday night?
So yes, I looked into this. I think now they certainly would offer this in the Super Bowl, right? Total number of rush attempts for a team.
Right.
I don't, and maybe it will pop up late on Monday night, but right now they just have some of the individual rush attempts up. So I would say, just looking at what I've seen so far, I would guess it's probably going to be sitting around like 25 and a half.
25
and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. That sounds about right. Now, of course, it's all a matter of game flow. I always love those stats, and you probably saw it, that the Eagles are 30 and I think it was 30-1 when they rush the ball more than 30 times, and they're 3-8 when they rush it less than, I don't know what it was. But no kidding.
Yeah,
you're
rushing the
you're
ball.
losing. That's why. It's because you're losing and you're throwing the ball. That's why.
Yeah.
That's. I love those chicken and the egg stats that show up all the time.
Well, and you asked me some props for that game, and one of the rushing attempts that is out is Jalen Hurts over 8.5 rushing attempts, which I actually do really like. One, because you get any of those tush pushes; those are free ones, and then kneel downs either at the half or the end of the game if you think the Eagles are going to win. So between those, you're already starting at like 4, maybe 5. And then they do those QB design draws at least a few times a game. And I think Hurts is feeling the pressure of a desperate team in need of a win. And that's when these guys scramble. So I think over 8.5 rushing attempts is a pretty good play for Hurts.
All right. Sean Green, the Sports Gambling Podcast. Check it out on the website. It's an excellent sport. Excellent. Whatever kind of gamer you are, you're going to find it on.
Oh, yeah. We got it all. Daily college basketball, daily NBA, hockey.
Hockey. Imagine that. Oh, my God. All right, listen. Dallas goes to Buffalo. Dallas riding high. But I said earlier in this high-quality program, Sean, there are two different Dallas teams. There's the one that plays at home, and then there's the one that plays on the road. Very much like the Lions, but probably a more talented team. But I don't trust Dallas at all going into Buffalo. I think Buffalo is going to beat them, and I think Buffalo is going to cover. Give me your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, I love it. Locked up the Bills on the Sports Gambling Podcast because I have a similar mindset. Non-conference games on the road, outdoors with a dome team. That right there, that's a tough situation spot, and you nailed it. Like the last time the Cowboys played outside of Dallas, you got to go back to November 19th, and they've been playing at home. They've been taking care of their opponents, but it's a completely different thing outdoors on the road. And I think the Bills match up pretty well against them. And you want to talk about a desperate team. How about this Buffalo Bills team? Truly back against the wall. Now they even have a chance to win the division because the Titans knocked out the Dolphins. So they have a ton to play for. They're at home. That's going to be an electric environment. It's going to be cold as hell. And, the Cowboys are sitting there fat and happy. They got, talking about Dak's going to be getting paid $60 million a year. Hey, we finally took down the Eagles. Meanwhile, I
said, Sean, teams revert to the mean. I do believe that's what's going to happen here. The other game I wanted to ask you about was Denver at Detroit Saturday night. You've got Denver, which is shockingly, Sean, has managed to resurrect their season. I can't believe it after that Miami game. But lo and behold, the Broncos with that Neanderthal Fred Flintstone offense are right on the cusp of playoff berth. Detroit, I think Detroit, they're fixed. I think they're fixed. They're a junior Dallas, in my opinion. Give me your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, hard to disagree. I'm with you on the Broncos and the points here. 4.5. There were even some 5s earlier in the week. I think the only thing that scares me is this is a Denver Broncos third road game, and we see teams hit that wall on the third road game. Yeah. So that certainly scares me scheduling wise. But one, this Lions defense has gotten exposed. Again, I didn't think the Lions were contender preseason because of their defense. Now they were holding it together earlier in the season, but now they are kind of falling apart here a little bit. And then the Jared Goff turnovers, 8 turnovers in the last few games.
I know.
He's fumbling. He's throwing interceptions. Yep. It's just pretty rough.
Yep.
So it's tough to trust him. And then there's also a narrative of Sean Payton really, really knows Dan Campbell. They have like a connection. I think there's going to be an extra little chip on the shoulder for Sean Payton, who is the more experienced coach, the wiser head coach in a lot of ways. And
in many ways, he has to go for it on his own 28.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Campbell, certainly some questionable play calling and in-game stuff.
I'd say
it feels like he's struggling a little bit. So Broncos in the points is where I'm at.
8 out of the 16 games this week, Sean, the number over-under number is at 40 or below. Half of the games in the league, the number is 40 or below. What the hell? Talk about the dead puck era. This is the deflated football era right now.
Yes. Although according to the Colts, the deflated football was helping all the scoring. And
I know.
You forget they ran for like 300 yards in that game. Still, it was the deflated football and that whole mess.
Everybody check out Sean Green's Twitter feed at Sean T. Green. He has a great comment he made there about Bill Belichick, who does look like his job is to sit right in front of the Ben Franklin Bridge entrance and hold up a sign saying "Give me money." He looks absolutely ridiculous. And
he's got some like holy ratty sweatshirt. He didn't comb his hair. I mean, again, I'm not the most dapper individual, but come on, Bill. Like, what are we doing?
Come on,
you can put on a clean shirt.
Yeah. You're one of 32. I'm sorry that Tom Brady's not throwing 50 touchdowns a year for you anymore, Bill.
Yeah, life's tough. I get it.
How about it? All right, listen, Sean Green, thank you very much. Tell me where everybody can get you over the weekend for some last-minute chicanery.
Yeah, Sports Gambling Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's an easy way to keep up with everything. Just youtube.com/Sports Gambling Podcast. Type it in your YouTube. Hit the subscribe. We got our NFL pick show out there, picking every game against the spread. We just recorded our props episode, ton of props we like for the Sunday slate. And then the pregame show, noon East, 9 a.m. Pacific, answering all your fantasy questions, gambling questions, counting you down to kickoff.
All right. Excellent. Well done. Please check it out. It's the best that's out there. Sean Green, thank you very much, pal. We'll talk to you next week. All right. All right, Sean Green checking in. Thanks to him very much. And thanks to this next guy coming up after this break. It's fantasy semifinal time. And we'll check with Justin Bruni to see who you should be starting, who you should be sitting, and going through the wasteland of starting running backs in the NFL. We'll do that next here on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
John Kennedy Ford. Their reputation sounded too good to be true, so my partner and I decided to do a little digging.
They know we can see them, right?
We could get them a great deal if they just come inside.
They made us. Run! Uncovering a better car buying experience is easy at John Kennedy Ford. Enjoy your ride.
Johnny Apple's Restaurant and Bar opened in 2001 and for over 20 years has been serving great food and good times to Bucks County residents, friends, and family. Ideally located at 184 Buck Road in Holland, Johnny Apple's offers a terrific array of steaks, seafood, and daily specials. They also host private parties and affairs of any size. For excellent food, great company, and a relaxed lunch or dinner, check out Johnny Apple's Restaurant at 215-953-9900 or at johnnyapplesrestaurant.com.
Welcome back to This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan joining you, and joined by Justin Bruni from the Sports Gambling Podcast. Justin, how you doing, pal?
Doing well. Yourself? Happy Thursday.
Very festive backdrop there. Well done, old boy. Well done. You put all those legs up yourself.
That's the Griswolds. That's cousin Eddie's motorhome there in the front.
I know you didn't put those lights up, Justin. Okay,
You're right. I did not.
You're too busy with your 200 leagues. How could you possibly have time to put those? Because every 8th bulb is going to go out, and then you're going to have to do it all over again.
That's true. But that's why they made cell phones, so we can set our lineups on the roof.
Well done. Well done. Let's help some people set some lineups now. By the way, Sean Green was presented by the great folks at Live Hotel Restaurant Casino. Justin Bruni presented by Concrete Cutting Systems. All right, Justin, it's semifinal time in a lot of leagues, or a lot of leagues continue on like mine because they're point production, not just head-to-head games. But let me start you with this here. Is that Saturday night, Detroit hosting Denver. I just got done lambasting Jared Goff and the Lions after just a disastrous performance last week against your Chicago Bears. Do you trust Jared Goff because he's back now to having a roof over his head?
That will help. That will help. Obviously, the weather wasn't as pleasant on the road in Chicago. Playing in a dome in December, always a good thing. But I'm opposite of you guys. I am on the Jared Goff hype train this week. Jared Goff has only thrown multiple interceptions twice this season, both to the Chicago Bears. Thank you, Monsters of the Midway. That was very nice to see from a fan perspective. Not great for some of my fantasy teams, I will say. But you take your wins where you can get them. So Goff, not very good up against the Bears so far this season, hasn't thrown multiple touchdowns up against any other team, and he gets a favorable matchup at home up against the Denver Broncos. The Broncos defense has been better as of late, but across the entire season, I would say they've been mid-level at best. So very similar to a few weeks ago when we talked about Goff coming in against New Orleans. This is another bounce-back situation. I feel very comfortable starting him up as well.
All right. Maybe good for me because I'm dying with Amon-Ra. I mean, he hasn't done anything.
Also, last week was Amon-Ra's worst game. He's coming off of 21 yards. I think that is, an overreaction to just think like, oh well, I can't possibly win my playoffs now without Amon-Ra. Like,
I know,
no,
but
that's not going to happen.
Goff is so mercurial, and I as a longtime Ram fan, I suffered with him in Los Angeles. He just goes into funk sometimes, but I think the roof will certainly help. Now, let me segue there, talking about good teams versus, in my opinion, Justin, say average offensive teams or even worse. And in terms of the dearth of receivers, now I this week would rank both Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp higher than, say, a Mike Evans or I could think of I got another receiver here.
Maybe like a Terry McLaurin.
Well, McLaurin, but even McLaurin's not. It maybe might be too dramatic. Let's say a Metcalf, DK Metcalf. The point being that, and what I want to ask you your take as a guru is: you agree, and would you rank guys higher, even a WR2 higher than a WR1, depending upon what team it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So a good example would be like Brandon Ayuk with the 49ers versus like a Terry McLaurin, like I just said, where I'm starting Brandon Ayuk over Terry McLaurin for sure. McLaurin's in a good situation. The numbers just haven't been there consistently. He's coming off a goose egg himself pre-bye. And I would easily go with the number 2 in that scenario. I'm trying to think of another one.
Yeah.
I think Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley, those are a couple of my gut starts this week. Yeah. Those guys haven't been wide receiver ones all season. One of them is going to be this week. And I know that Calvin Ridley didn't have the best game last week. No. Still had 13 targets, a season high with Christian Kirk on the IR. So those are 2 gut starts for me, but neither player I would consider like a wide receiver 1 even on their team. The wide receiver 1's injured. He's on the IR.
Jacksonville, and of course I had Kirk, of course, but Jacksonville, very mercurial team. You just don't know week to week. But I'll say this: when Jacksonville gets in the red zone, he looks for Ridley. So I mean, Ridley's a good guy to have on that team. This show's headquartered outside of Philadelphia. Give me your take on the Eagle players Monday night against Seattle. Are you looking for a bounce back from A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, maybe a guy who's just been forgotten now in their offense, DeAndre Swift?
DeAndre Swift would be the guy that I think has the biggest bounce back ability. It's a good matchup up against Seattle. The last time he had a similar matchup like this, that was positive EV for running back, he scored a touchdown. I think that was, I'm forgetting the opponent, but I want to say it was like week 10 or 11. softer opponent. The last 4 weeks, their opponents have been stronger up against the run, and because they just divide and conquer on the ground, the Eagles, you're just going to see less opportunity for a guy like Swift to really boom. Seahawks, good matchup for the Eagles this week. I definitely believe that Swift will bounce back. Smith and AJ Brown are just in my lineups. Like they're just start them and forget it. They're there. So I'm not going to think about firing those guys up. It's a good situation. I don't think that the Seahawks secondary is anything amazing, but you have Dallas Goedert back there. There's more mouths to feed. I can't necessarily say, I'm gonna finish Sunday or week 15 with Devontae Smith and AJ Brown both as top 12 receivers. That would be to see, I think.
Fair enough. Are there any other gut feel starts that you have in mind, Justin, for this week as people kind of find combing through the rubble of some of these injuries? Any other guys that you think might be a good plug and play for a fantasy semifinal?
Yeah, going back to that Jacksonville game, the Ravens are playing the Jags this week. I like Odell Beckham Jr. and or Zay Flowers. Good matchup for them. The Jags are pretty solid actually up against the run. They have a good pass rush. I think Josh Allen does get to Lamar Jackson at least once this week, and they maybe stifle the run game a little bit more. But I think that's going to propel more passing opportunities for the Ravens this week. You saw Odell score a touchdown last week. Zay Flowers, getting back to the norm of his season's narrative. And we also saw Isaiah Likely filling in for Mark Andrews score a touchdown and have a big week as well. So I think all of those guys are absolutely live. If you have anything close to a top tight end or top 10 tight end this week, you're starting them. Same thing goes with quarterback. I don't mind starting Jake Browning, but diving into like a Will Levis situation in the playoffs, don't feel good about that. No. Still don't feel that great about Tommy DeVito on the road, but shout out, absolute respect for what he's doing.
If he was anywhere else but New York,
it wouldn't be a thing. Yeah, you're right. I mean, if he was in Texas, the folks down there aren't going to get behind Marlon. It's not going to happen.
58 yards passing. He's NFC Player of the Week. I love that.
Welcome to 2023 in the NFL.
Yeah. So, I mean, even starters like Baker Mayfield, there's so many guys.
That's a bit of a safer start right now, unfortunately. I hope you have better options out there. I would start, say, like a Gardner Minshew over Baker still. Right. But Baker, he gets some shots, and he's coming off a big, big week. I had a team, take me out of money contention. I wasn't playing for the playoffs. I was already in. But I'm like, I can have a shot to finish in second, make a little bit of money. The other guy sat Lawrence and started Baker and absolutely washed me down. So didn't make any regular season money there, but I was a little sour on that. I was like, man,
I understand
this guy was sharp, starting Baker over Lawrence even when injured.
Yeah. All right, Justin, where does everybody find you now over the weekend? I know I'll find you, but where does everybody else find you so we can, because it's sheet squirming time now in fantasy football.
It is. You can find me on the X, on the old Twitter machine at SGPNJB, and you can find our channel on YouTube at SGPN Fantasy Football.
All right. Justin, Bruni, thank you very much for joining me. We got one more week with you. We'll top it off next week. All right, pal? Thanks very much.
Can't wait. Thank you, sir.
All right. Justin Bruni joining me there. All right, we get back. I'm very excited to have this gentleman join me, Mike Sando from The Athletic, and a long time covered the Seahawks for ESPN. We're going to talk Seahawks, Eagles, and get around the league a little bit. That's all next to finish up this edition of This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
I got everything you need. Anything can happen when you go live. I got everything you need. No trouble, don't mean a thing. Everything I said, I'm on the same. Yeah, don't mean a thing. Everything I said, I'm on the same. Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia, voted best casino in Pennsylvania.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go Eagles.
Evolution Energy Partners has helped hundreds of businesses save millions of dollars on their energy spend. They offer electricity and gas procurement strategies, efficiency audits and engineering and financing solutions, as well as online utility bill management. To learn how your business can save, visit www.evolutionep.com or contact Chuck Herschella at 610-329-8288. Evolution Energy Partners, energy solutions to improve your bottom line.
All right, welcome back here this week in pro football on the JAKIB Sports. Bring this guy up here. Very, very excited to have him join me for the first time. That would be Mike Sando from The Athletic, a guy who for 12 years covered the Seattle Seahawks and the NFC West for ESPN. Michael, good to see you.
Good to be here. All the way from Seattle.
I know. It's nice to have you here. I recognize some of those books behind you there, that famous shot of Lombardi. So I see that the book on Belichick. But I want everybody to check out The Athletic because it's a great bargain for one thing. And the other thing is that Michael each week authors a column on Thursdays about current trends in NFL quarterbacking. And it's a great read. And I want to talk to Mike about that. But before we do that, Mike, and talk about quarterbacks, I thought we'd spend some time on the two teams that are playing Monday night. Seattle's beaten the Eagles 7 times in a row. Those things to me always seem more happenstance than anything else. But I want your take on this. I was positing earlier in the show, Mike, that I'd rather play a team that's won 4 in a row than play a team that's lost 4 in a row, because teams revert to the mean. They don't go on 5-game streaks to either win or loss. And I think Seattle's very dangerous. Just give me your take on that.
I sort of agree. I think it's a dangerous game, just partly because, the Eagles have obviously not played great lately. Even when they were winning, they weren't just like hitting on all of the cylinders. So you're coming across country. Seattle, at its best has been okay, not great, but a little bit dangerous. Also vulnerable, though. I mean, there's a reason why they've lost these games in a row. Pete Carroll doesn't have a good defense anymore. Yeah. And they have matchups that really can be exploited. Right. Bobby Wagner is probably the most famous player on the defense, but he can't really run like he used to. No. He gets picked on, by a really skilled offensive coordinator. Like in the NFC West, you're going to play Sean McVay. You're going to play Kyle Shanahan. They can find these guys. Jamal Adams. Coming off of an injury, just doesn't move that well. Can be, if he's used in coverage, is going to be vulnerable. So there's places to go to, against this defense that should work well for the Eagles.
And yet Seattle, they looked offensively anyway, Mike. They looked so good against Dallas in that Thursday after Thanksgiving. They stumbled a bit last week, but I think the 49ers are in another class. Do you see Geno Smith? You think he's going to play? I know he's desperately trying to, but he's taken some shots this year. Who mans the Seattle offense Monday night?
I think it's concerning for Seattle on offense. Yes, when Geno is healthy and playing, they have good skill. They have a really good running back, 2 good receivers, some okay tight ends, and the offensive line has struggled on the interior this year, but they've drafted a couple of good tackles. They've got them both playing now. I just don't know if Geno's going to be as effective. He had a groin injury suffered a week ago today. That is why he's missing. Yeah, he's taken some shots, but this was a separate deal. So is he going to be 100%? I just don't see how he is. I think his movement will be affected if he does play, and there's just enough question there. Also, Geno has been lights out playing indoors. I did an article on that last week. His numbers indoors are just tremendously better. I'm not 100% sure why, but last time I checked, there's not a roof in Seattle. So, if he's injured, hasn't played as well outdoors, I think you take your chances if you're the Eagles.
All right. From 3,000 miles away, Mike, I'd appreciate your perspective on the Eagles. A team that really took the league by storm last year. Got to 10-1 this year. Very impressive, but they were winning games tight. And there was some uneasiness even here in Philly, even though because it's such a high bar. The last 2 weeks, the Eagles have hurtled to earth like a comet. Just give me your thoughts about the team and whether you see which Eagle team do you expect to see Monday night?
I think it's the same team that's been playing this year, and the opponent that you play is everything. When you play the 49ers, you can look really bad if you're not on your game, and that's what's happened to a bunch of teams this year, including the Cowboys, including the Eagles, including the Seahawks now twice. So I think the Eagles should be able to beat the Seahawks. The matchup is what it is. Now, when you're a team like Philly that's been to the Super Bowl, you're measured by that new standard. And so, clearly they're not the best team in the NFC right now. What is satisfying for them as a season? Is it winning a playoff game or two? Yeah, 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
Right now, though, they've got to live up to that record that they had and live up to the Super Bowl last season. And I think that's going to be really hard for them.
That's true. But you're right about that. That bar has been raised. If the Eagles, for instance, this year were to win one playoff game and then lose, if they end up a 5 seed, they got to go to San Francisco week 2. They lose. I don't think that's going to be chalked up as a successful season here in Philadelphia. But you mentioned Seattle, Mike, as a team that Pete Carroll, he doesn't have the horses that he's had in the past. Carroll, 14 years as Seattle's head coach. He's compiled a record of 144-97. How has he done it? What are the specifics and the ways in which Pete Carroll has had such a successful run for such a long time in Seattle?
So the strength of Pete Carroll is as a culture setter and as a leader who brings positive energy. And when he was first hired, I kind of, I don't know, does this rah-rah stuff work in the NFL? Right. It's 100% authentic. He's great at it. It helps sometimes when he has younger players. But it's a double-edged sword because he's not like a scheming play caller in the minutia of the matchups. And I always feel like, he brings this great culture, gets the energy, gets the best out of guys, really instills confidence in quarterbacks. Guys like Russell Wilson that people didn't think was going to be very good, has a great career. Geno Smith, people laughed when they said Geno Smith would be their quarterback. He went to the Pro Bowl last year.
Right.
Even Drew Lock came in. He was a disaster in Denver. I mean, he wasn't a disaster last week. Yeah. Pete Carroll gets the best out of his guys.
He sure does.
Now, the other side of that, though, is because he is a big picture coach who is not, he's not a play caller and bringing that to the game. Sometimes that area feels like it's left to his coordinators or he doesn't fix it as well as he might if he were the play caller. So I think that's been a little bit of their issue, especially in this NFC West division. They got swept by the Rams.
Yeah.
Well, Sean McVay has his hands on all the little levers on game day.
Right.
And so that's probably not where Pete's strength is.
All right. But he's had a heck of a run out there. He's had a heck of a run. And Seattle, a relatively anonymous NFL outpost, of course, especially in the East here, where everybody thinks the world ends at the Mississippi River. but in any event, he's done a heck of a job out there. All right, I wanted to segue now, Mike, to this column that you write here on The Athletic about quarterbacks, and you put out the quarterback tiers, and you reshuffled the deck a little bit. And I want to zero in on Dak Prescott. I mean, I think the world of Jalen Hurts. I think Hurts is a bona fide quarterback. Certainly Mahomes, Allen, the usual suspects. Yep. Prescott is now poking his head in some rarefied air because of the run that he's been on. And yet I'm struck by two of the comments that showed up in your piece. One in which one of the persons in your article said, quote, "I feel like that is Dallas in general, blowing people out and getting killed by San Francisco." That's pretty subtle. And then the other one that's even more pointed, I want to see Dak do it when it matters.
Yeah.
So, I mean, give me your thoughts on that. And do you think, and this week, Mike is a great example, Dallas on the road and in real conditions in Buffalo. Give me your thoughts on Prescott and which real Dak are we going to see?
The most encouraging thing from a Dallas standpoint is it is different with Mike McCarthy taking over as the play caller and having his hands on the position. I think he's a great coach of the position. Right. Maybe late in his run in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers wasn't listening as much because he had earned the right to sort of do his own thing. I do think that bodes well. There is a chance that this is a little bit of a different Dak moving forward because of that partnership. It's probably the best partnership that he's had. That being said, we have 10 years of watching Dak Prescott. We know he's a good quarterback.
Right.
And we know that they are a team now that gets measured by what they do in the postseason, right? I mean, I think Lamar Jackson's a little similar. We know these guys win a bunch of games. I mean, Dallas has one of the best records in the league, top 3 record in the league the last 2-3 years. Right. Mike McCarthy has a better record winning percentage with the Cowboys than he had with the Packers.
Right.
So once you do that, now we say, okay, let's see you do it in the playoffs, right? Exactly, it feels like moving goalposts, but it's really just the next step. Yeah. We know Dak Prescott's good. He was a tier 2 quarterback in my survey of 50 coaches and evaluators, which means I think if you're in the top 2 tiers, you feel like you can win it all with your guy.
Right.
So we know he's good. He's been a Pro Bowler.
Right.
But against the really good teams, when it gets tight,
yep,
it hasn't fallen their way. So you got to make that happen.
I think, Mike, it's going to be fascinating at Buffalo, then at Miami. This is it. If Prescott wants to get his name mentioned with the Mahomeses and the Allens, this is the time to do it right now. It'd be fascinating to see. Another name I wanted to run by you, Mike, and you spent some time in the piece on it, was Brock Purdy. Now, my initial inclination, Mike, is that the 31 other teams couldn't have been wrong. You could even make the case San Francisco was wrong. They picked them in the last round.
Yeah.
Now, is Brock Purdy the ultimate system quarterback, like a mini Joe Montana, or does this guy have NFL bona fides?
Well, I don't think you're saying that Joe Montana didn't have NFL bona fides. Right. I mean, I think that's a hard thing to say. We know that the system really helps him. We know that he doesn't have special John Elway talent, right? He doesn't have Patrick Mahomes talent. He's not somebody that the defensive coordinator stays up all night going, oh my gosh, if we shut him down over here, he's going to make an 80-yard play over there. That's not it. But he's a super good fit for what they do because he processes really fast. And so Kyle, you have a great caller in Kyle Shanahan who schemes beautifully and has good talent and gets them open, but he has a guy who gets the ball to him like extremely quickly through his reads. So to say that it's just the system would imply that anybody could do that. I don't think that's true. I don't think we put Tommy DeVito in this offense that they would be going favorites to win the Super Bowl, or that DeVito would be an MVP. He might be better than he is now, but I think it's a little bit unfair to the player when he clearly makes some great throws, not just there's a lot of dump offs in their offense, but he's throwing the ball with anticipation down the field.
Right. There's no question. You're right. He's an accurate, and the way he processes fast. You can see it. But he has overwhelming talent on the offensive side of that ball right now.
Yeah.
And but hey, he is the guy. He's the guy. He's, as you said, he's Shanahan on the field.
It's kind of like if you ever play golf.
Oh yeah.
So he gets to tee off downhill a lot.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that he's not hitting it right down the middle. But when he hits a 250-yard drive, it goes 290.
Right.
And so does that mean he's a 290-yard driver? It does, but there's some reasons for it.
Yeah. Well, like we just mentioned about Prescott a minute ago, and this isn't fair. I'm not in any way, I don't mean to impugn Brock Purdy. He is clearly, it really makes me chuckle about NFL scouting and the fact that everybody missed on this guy, but that's the way of it. But like we just talked about with Dak, I want to see Brock Purdy with 1 minute and 16 seconds to go on his own 11-yard line, needing to win a game. Now, the 49ers don't make a habit of having to do that, but it'll be interesting to see if it happens come playoff time. But he's ascendant in your quarterback ratings, right?
Well, no doubt. I mean, so basically tier 1 is Mahomes, so the big difference makers. Tier 2 is kind of, think over the years of a Stafford or a Matt Ryan. Tier 3 is sort of Andy Dalton, a guy you can win with, but need help. And tier 4 is sort of, maybe it's a Ryan Fitzpatrick who wouldn't start the whole year, or it's a young guy we haven't seen enough. He got the top of tier 4 because we'd seen 5 regular season starts, and he was coming off elbow surgery. So everybody kind of gave him a tier 4 wait and see. I think he's clearly going to go to the top of tier 3 or even into tier 2, depending how this year finishes. And the reason he's not going higher is hasn't done it longer. And we do feel like he's teeing off downhill, like I was saying. That is a component to this.
And it is. And for an organization that traded away a huge amount of collateral for Trey Lance and then found this guy, you talk about just an absolute steal. The way the 49ers were able to so quickly overcome the miss on Trey Lance. But that's what good organizations do, Michael. Am I right?
Yeah, and they moved on from Lance quickly. It was a huge high-risk move that didn't make sense. I mean, I still can't figure out what they were doing. Like, did they get talked into Trey Lance because we thought it was Mac Jones, but you're right. They were able to get a guy. And I think it's a testament to the system of Shanahan too. That hey, they've been to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, what does he look like outside that system?
That's
right?
a fact. Well, that's a fact, and that buttresses. And I'm not saying, Mike. Again, I'm not trying to sell Brock Purdy short, but that buttresses the point about whether rising tide in San Francisco is lifting the Brock Purdy boat. Because, like you mentioned, a guy like Garoppolo, he has done absolutely nothing in Vegas. But 49ers are a powerhouse right now. They are a powerhouse, and it's going to be hard to take them down, as I see it. All right, Michael, where can people find you? I mentioned The Athletic. I want everybody to subscribe. It's cheap as hell, and it's a great read. It's a great read, and certainly Mike's stuff is a great read. Where else can people find you and the fine work that you're doing?
So there's two places. One would be on X at Sando NFL. The other, Dan Pompei, a colleague of mine and a fellow Hall of Fame voter, along with our friend Sal Paolantonio too. Dan Pompei and I wrote this book. See, I'm pointing it to it right here.
Yeah.
The Football 100. The 100 greatest players in the history of the game. And there's fun, good feature stories that have been written about each one. I won't spoil too much of it, but we made, as we were writing it, once Tom Brady won that Super Bowl with Tampa, we did move him over Jim Brown to number one because we thought going to a different team really made the difference. But check out that book. That's out new from HarperCollins.
You know, Mike, I'd love to. I've been teasing this for a while, and I'd love to do it. Maybe when the season's over, if you're willing to come back, I'd love to have an entire show devoted to the Hall of Fame. And I'd like to get you on there and Sal on there. And I have Gary Myers on the show frequently. And I'd love to get experts like you guys on and just talk about the whole process and how it works and how certain guys got in and certain guys didn't. But I think it'd be a wonderful discussion. Do that.
It would. That could, that could get ugly. Me, Sal, and Gary, it could get pretty heated in there. I'm kidding.
I know. Don't disagree with Sal now, Mike. I can't be held responsible.
Love him.
Yeah. But the Football 100, I got to get that. Great read. I've seen excerpts of it on The Athletic, and it's a great read. Anybody want to check that out? Great Christmas gift. Mike Sando, thanks a lot for coming on. I appreciate it very much, and I really would like to have you back. Maybe as we get into this playoff run, it'd be great to have you back on.
Anytime. Love doing it. Love the conversation.
All right, Mike. Thanks very much. Mike Sando from The Athletic, formerly from ESPN. All right, that'll do it for this week's edition of This Week in Pro Football. I hope you all enjoyed the football talk there. I think Philadelphia wins Monday night. Of course, I've been saying that now the last 3 weeks. I thought the Eagles would beat the Niners. Even though I said it was a dangerous game, it obviously was. I thought the Eagles would beat Dallas. They did not. Didn't come close. But I believe that, as I said, teams revert to the mean. The Eagles are not this bad. I think the Eagles get back to the mean before Seattle does. I think Philadelphia wins this game Monday night, but I don't think it'll be that easy a game. Anyway, we look forward to that. And then the final 3 games of the season as we hurtle into the playoff run. We'll keep a close eye on all of it. Thank you very much to Tone DeShields for producing tonight. Thank you very much. And thank you for watching This Week in Pro Football here on JAKIB Sports. Good night.